Earlier this year, I began to track Walmart EV Charging's rollout of DC fast charging across the nation when they started in Dallas, Fort Worth. It wasn't very long into that effort that a huge surprise arose, which shouldn't have been a surprise at all. Alpitronic had joined their team. Alpitronic hyperchargers began to go into the ground very, very quickly. And since then, we have found in permitting that they are going to be a huge player for Walmart EV charging. So I invited Mike Doucleff, president of Alpitronic Americas, to help us answer the question, why Alpitronic? And I think the answer is going to be, why not? Stick around. So Mike, tell me, what does your story at Alpitronic look like?
Well, hi, Landon. First of all, good day. Great to meet you, and thanks for having me on your show today. Look, I've always been fascinated by electricity. Even as a child, I can remember wiring things together at home, always tripping the circuit breaker and upsetting my parents and burning things from time to time. So always had this fascination that I really took on with me to engineering school, and then I carried that passion into my professional life. So I've been around electricity and power distribution my entire career. Then in around 2017, I started to hone that passion for electricity into electric mobility. So now you can say my sub passion is electric mobility outside of electricity, and I've been in the field since 17. Then I joined Alpitronic a bit over 2 years ago, based in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's our headquarters for the Americas, and I joined the company really to start up the business in the Americas.
So, Alpitronic was originally founded as a company that pushed the field of power conversion and modular power components forward. How are those original ideas and goals of the company's founders still present in the company today?
Well, look, Landon, power electronics is in our DNA. The four founders of the company all studied power electronics. Early on in the career of the company, we started building components for large OEMs like Daimler and BMW, so building power electronic components for their vehicles. We also have this early business called power cycling, where early on in the company, we work with the large semicons and we take the chipsets from them and we turn them on and off thousands of times, millions of times to kind of simulate useful life. And having access early to these chipsets has really given us some deep insight into how the modules work and has really helped us to make the transition from silicon-based power units to silicon carbide power units. So then in 2016, we kind of said, hey, we've been doing a lot of work for other companies. Why don't we build our own brand? So we really brought together all of that experience over the previous years from working with tier one OEMs, from the EV industry, frankly, right, by building components for them, all of our experience in power electronics, the experience with all of the chips following the power cycling business, and we put all that together, and it turned out to be the right recipe to build a DC fast charger. So we launched our first fast charger then in 2018, starting from the project years in around 2016. So, but today we continue to iterate on that power electronics. When we moved over from silicon to silicon carbide modules, we increased our efficiency up to 97.5%, even over a little bit. We increased our power density by 33%. That means we get more power today out of the same physical footprint as yesterday. And we continue to iterate on that. We've just released our next generation silicon carbide module where we increase our power density again by 25%. So that's 25% more power we're going to get tomorrow than we do get out of our modules today.
Awesome. I think it's fair to say that Alpitronic is a household name in Europe. And then you all entered the market for North America 2021. What were some of the differences that Alpitronic had to account for between the two markets when it entered North America?
Well, there's a big list there, Landon. I mean, there's basic things like the grid, right? The grid in the US is 40 volts, 60 hertz. That's different from most of the rest of the world. Vehicle types. are, of course, different in the North American market. Connectors as well, right? Connectors have really standardized on the CCS2 connector in most of the geography with Shademo going away. Now in the US, of course, we have our transition
Hmm.
from CCS1 to NACS over time. Things like codes and standards, right? And there's an alphabet soup there of UL, INTEP, CTEP, ADA that we need to account for. Also, frankly, the Tesla dominance up until now in the U.S. and Tesla's done a really good job of giving a great user experience around charging. So I would say customers in the U.S. are much more demanding than customers are typically in Europe. Then there's other things linked to the geography, right? Long
Hmm.
distances, different climates, and yeah. So a lot of things on that list, Landon, on what we had to really look at when we came over to the Americas.
Sure, and that's why I'm glad that I got to ask that question because those are things that I never would have considered. Um, but maybe we can hone in real fast on what were some of the problems in North America that Alpitronic thought it was uniquely positioned to solve with the North American market.
Yeah, what we hear from our customers really they want two things. They want uptime and reliability, right? Uptime mean the charger's on, reliability mean the charger works. So I think the first kind of round of DC fast charging deployment in the US left a lot of battle scars, frankly, on a lot of the people in the industry. And I think really they were asking for, look, we just want a charger that works, right?
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, that's what's important. We don't want to have to think about it. It should just work. And actually, that's when we look at the Alpitronic strategy, and if you look at the four-word title of our strategy, it's charging must always work. So that's something that's we're really passionate about. That's something we follow on a regular basis, uptime and charging success rate or reliability, and that's super important for us. And that's really what we're bringing to the North American market.
Absolutely, and I personally have reaped the benefits of that with my charging experiences. Um, so since this time last year, October of 2024, even points before that, Alpitronic has seen a rapid adoption of its hypercharger line in North America. Some of the players are household names here now for those who drive EV vehicles, such as Mercedes Benz High Power Charging, Iona, BP Pulse, Walmart EV Charging. I've visited some pilot sites using hyperchargers like Electrify America. We've seen Circle K and Apple Green use them in piloting ways, and I'm sure that they're going to investigate and make good decisions on moving forward with that. Um, and it also has become a key player in fleet charging for fleets that are electrified. All of that really to say Alpitronic is clearly doing something to attract large networks to its hardware. What specific strategies or innovations have can you contribute to this success, and how do you measure that success?
Yeah, well, I would really bring that back to our strategy at company level, which is charging must always work. And if you look at how we measure that, really two really key metrics we look at. One is uptime. So is the charger on? Is it available? And the second one is the charging success rate. So what percent of time when a user tries to use the charger does it work? And these two metrics we follow religiously in the company. We follow those on a daily basis. And we look, of course, at trends over time. So, but there's really no silver bullet, unfortunately, on how you deliver a good uptime and a good charging success rate. For example, it all starts with the power electronics. So we are power electronics experts. We design the power electronics. So we know exactly what's happening inside of the power conversion. And that's really what a DC fast charger is. It's power conversion, right? And then
Mhm.
there's some cables and safety elements around that. But at the end of the day, the power conversion is the most important element. And by designing the power electronics, that means we know exactly what's happening inside. And we're also able to monitor by placing sensors in the right places to know exactly what's happening. And that really is super important. You know, if you're not designing your power modules, if you're sourcing the modules from somewhere else and you're just plugging in one side AC and getting DC out of the other side and you don't know what's happening, it's a black box inside. Well, that's going to really, really give you a lot more risk and exposure to having more downtime and a worse charging success rate. But the second point I think would be around having a remote connection to all of the assets. So, problems do happen, right? And when there is a problem, it's not very efficient to always send technicians in the field because probably 50% of the time you can solve problems remotely. So by having this remote connection, being able to log into the asset, being able to understand what's happening, maybe not down to the last minute detail of where the problem is, but either being able to solve the problem remotely, and that's going to get the uptime and charging success rate right back up. Or if not able to solve it remotely, at least diagnose remotely, maybe not down to the capacitor that has a problem, but down to the subassembly. So that when you do need to go to the field to do something, you're not bringing a soldering iron, you're more bringing a subassembly that you swap out. So I think this remote connection is key. And then it comes down to the design of the hardware itself. So having a design for service is important. So again, when you come to the field, you want to be able to turn the charger off, swap a subassembly, and be back on as soon as possible. If you're trying to diagnose in the field what the charger, what the issue is at the charger, that's going to take you much more time. So having the remote diagnosis and then sending the right technician with the right training, with the right part, to the field and having a design where you can change sub-assemblies very quickly in the field. Most of our interventions take less than 1 hour versus having to diagnose in the field will also deliver to that higher uptime. I think data is another one. So we log every session, every charging session that happens on our network. And we do that to analyze patterns for product improvement. If we see that, hey, maybe there's a specific issue on a certain grid, there could be an issue on a certain vehicle type, at a certain temperature, whatever, having multiple charging sessions in a database and then being able to analyze those is super important. And then I think actually, behind that, there's also things you can do automatically and things where people do, but having a team that just is focused every morning when they wake up on doing proactive analysis, right? What's happening on the network, and there could be issues around interrupt or whatever, but this is super important. So all of these things are really going to contribute to a higher uptime and a higher charging success rate.
Good, thank you. How would you say that Alpitronic has differentiated itself from EV charging hardware competitors?
Well, I think one thing that's, nothing even product related. We are a privately held company, and we are a pure player in DC fast charging hardware, and we're proud to say that.
Mhm.
We focus on what we do best, which is power conversion, power electronics, and then given our corporate structure, we really only answer to our customers. So we're not having to answer to a public market or a private equity or even a mother company. We really only answer to our customers. And that's really allowed us to keep focused, especially in turbulent times, to stay really focused, to stay in our swim lane, focusing on what we do best and not being distracted by wanting to get into shiny objects or other things that maybe would take our time off of what we really do best and what's important in DC fast charging. So I think this corporate structure of the company is super unique compared to most in the market. Then, of course, on the hardware itself, I mean, again, coming down to power electronics, we can deliver 600 amps, 1,000 volts, 400 kilowatts. Basically, whatever your vehicle needs, you're going to get the full power, right? Depending on that vehicle type. Other things I mentioned, design for service, but also design for manufacturing. We actually don't really manufacture; it's more assembly, right? It's an assembly of sub-assemblies, so quite efficient in terms of manufacturing. I think also having a dual supply chain, right, between the Americas and between Europe gives us a lot of flexibility. I think maybe one other point, and nobody really talks about this one today, but tomorrow I think they will, as we, as a society, become more and more reliant on electric vehicles, including not only for passenger use but for commercial use and even for emergency services, and that's cybersecurity. And that's something where it's a little known fact that we have a dedicated team inside the company, what we call a red and a blue team. Some people that are building it, some people that are trying to hack it continuously. And we have this dedicated team that focuses solely on cybersecurity. We actually had a hackathon a few weeks ago at the headquarters in Europe where we invited these well-known hackers from all over the world to come in, spend 1 week with us, and try and hack into our product. So it's something that we take really, really seriously. We even just got our cybersecurity certification. That's a 27001. So I think cybersecurity is one, again, nobody really talks about it today, but in the future, more and more, as EV becomes more prevalent,
Mhm.
that's going to be much more top of mind for our customers.
That is spectacular. I am glad to hear the investment in cybersecurity as more and more of these chargers come online in North America. So we've talked about the corporate side, how your company is different, and we've talked about their data-driven approach to uh, keeping that uptime as high as possible. Um, what kind of consumer feedback have you received that is confirming that those are the two strategies that you want to employ?
Well, first thing, we sell B2B, right? So we're not selling directly to consumers or to drivers,
Mhm.
but we do get a lot of interaction. First thing, if I just look around the office here, most of us are EV drivers, so there's already a lot of experience and knowledge there. Many have been EV drivers for years and years, but we also have some non-EV drivers. And you get an absolute different perspective from a non-EV driver who attempts to charge something versus a regular EV driver. So very interesting and different viewpoints. We also learn from our global experience. So while we're a very, very small portion of our global fleet in the US, we still have a lot of experience in Europe, and we're able to leverage all of that experience and knowledge from European customers when applicable, right, in the US. But I think the one where we really get down and get the really good data and feedback is when we attend driver clinics with our B2B customers. So our customers at one of their site may host a clinic, invite drivers, consumers to come in, incentivize them, and then record them, ask questions, and look at the behavior. And this is very important for the user experience because depending on the different networks, there can be different authentication methods and different setups of the charging, between cables. So that's really important to have that feedback, and that really helps us to improve what we call the attempted charging success rate. So not did I plug it in, did it work, but can I actually get a successful plug-in? Did the payment authorized? Is it plugged in, correctly into the charging point? So I think these driver clinics are really the most valuable, consumer feedback that we get.
Awesome. So Alpitronic entered the North American market at quite an interesting point in history. The market has seen, since your entry, supply chain issues, differences in incentives state by state, and now a completely different federal administration. Yet, through all of that, Alpitronic has only seen incredible growth. How has overcoming those unique changes in the North American market shaped the approaches or operations of the company today?
Yeah, look, the EV industry is still nascent, right? Still very new, and you really need to keep up with that constantly changing landscape, right? Of new vehicles, not only new vehicles but new companies, right? Providing new vehicles, the transition to the NACS adapter, adapters themselves, right, are now starting to appear, and we've seen that bringing problems. Codes and standards, of course, are constantly a moving target. So that's a challenge in itself, right? Is just to keep up with the industry, which is still kind of figuring itself out. Um, then I think also, yeah, the environment and the entire EV, let's say, landscape is shifting, and what that's also, um, I wouldn't say forced us to do, but forced us to accelerate a bit is setting up this dual supply chain, right? So allowing, a dual purchasing, a dual assembly, a sub-assembly, UL certification. So this has really accelerated the fact that we've put in place now a global supply chain, so a dual footprint. So then we're really able to optimize between the Americas, between Europe. We can really optimize the flows for us and for our customers, depending on the changing landscape. But I think at the end of the day, for us, it's really more about earning the trust in the local market. Um, we've done, our customers tell us that they appreciate us in Europe, and so we have a bit of equity there. But We still need to prove ourselves in the U.S., and that's again the first round of DCFC has got a lot of battle scars out there. So many of our customers are adamant with some of their demands and requests, um, and we need to prove ourselves. Right? It's a new grid. There are new vehicle types. So that's not something that we take for granted. That's something we're working very hard out, and we're hard at, and we're confident that ultimately we will gain and keep the trust of our customers. That's the plan.
You've certainly gained and trusted mine. It's just
Right.
just a pleasure of an experience to charge at a HYC 400 in my part of the country. I have to imagine with such prolific growth, workforce development is key. How has Alpitronic addressed the need for skilled installers and technicians in North America? And what lessons have you learned about building local talent?
Yeah, well, first of all, we don't install. We rely on our partners for that.
Okay.
But we do have a robust training program for installation, for commissioning, for annual preventative maintenance. So that's something that's really, one of those inputs that we talked about earlier to having a reliable network is really that service network, making sure that installations are done correctly, making sure that when there are problems, they're fixed correctly. And the learning from Europe was, you really have to have a robust training program. And I'm not just talking about, you look at something online. No, we actually have physical programs where you come in and you touch the product. There's an exam, and you need to stay current on that certification, because our learning in Europe is that if you've been trained as a partner and you don't use it, right, because the product is reliable over time, right, you lose it. And then we find that we have to come back and help. So this training aspect for us is super important to make sure that anyone out there, working on Alpitronic equipment, whether it's installation or maintenance, is trained and certified by us, and that's really a requirement on our side. And again, coming back to how do we deliver on the uptime? How do we deliver on the charging success rate? That's a key input. Now, that being said, the EV industry is still very small, right? So we all know each other in the industry here locally. Vetting candidates can be super quick in terms of the workforce, right? We can send a quick text message to some colleagues, and odds are somebody knows somebody from the industry because we're still small. I would say also that unfortunately, a lot of companies these days, and you've seen that, have been downsizing, closing, bankruptcy. So there's a lot of experienced talent out there in the market that we're able to capture, frankly, because they're available. But I think our best, recruiting lever there is our existing employees, and that's just having potential candidates talk to the existing team and get a feedback on the company, and that tends to be one of our biggest levers for attracting talent.
Cool. So let's look ahead. Um, what are Alpitronic's goals for North America in, say, the next 3 to 5 years? The HYC 1000 seems to be attracting a lot of attention and has even garnered the intent to install by Mercedes Benz high power charging.
Well, our intent is just to continue executing on our strategy. And again, charging must always work. So continued focus on our reliability, continued focus on uptime and charging success rate. So this is number one. We're going to continue to iterate on our power electronics. So we've done already, first generation power electronics that then moved to silicon carbide. And now we're already on our second generation silicon carbide. So you can imagine that we continue to do what we do best, which is to iterate on the power electronics and to continue to improve. And you're right, we are launching the HYC 1000. So that's our first entry into the distributed architecture. Now, that's not going to be an or, that's going to be an and. So we're going to continue to provide the all-in-one architecture because there's use cases that make more sense for the all-in-one, but we're also now going to have the distributed architecture where, again, there's also specific use cases for that. So I think moving forward, you're going to see our product family evolve and expand in North America, but we will continue to have both architectures in place.
Great. So, final question. Just from your perspective, I have to imagine that running this company for you is quite rewarding, but not everybody sees everything that you do. And so, what is maybe one detail about Alpitronic that people may have missed that you would love to bring to the front of their mind?
Well, yeah, there's some really interesting data. Two things maybe. There's some really interesting data. that's maybe not so widely known, even if it's public, and that is that we have over 100,000 DC fast charging ports live active today throughout the world. 100,000 ports are live. So that's, for me, blows my mind
Mhm.
every day when I think about that. Another number that's interesting is, as of today, I checked this morning, we have logged over 160 million charging sessions across our network. So, and that number also blows my mind.
Mhm.
Now, here's the most interesting number. It took us several years to log that first 1 million charging sessions worth of data. Today, we're at a bit over 160 million. Today, it takes us only 96 hours to log another 1 million charging sessions on our network. So these numbers just completely, every time I read them and look at them, they really blow my mind. And it's completely crazy. But more importantly is that we use that data, right? So as we deploy more ports, we're going to have more charging sessions. As adoption increases, there's going to be more utilization. The database will grow. That's more data for us to look at, to analyze, to build action plans, to then continue to improve our products. So this flywheel is just feeding on itself, and that's something that's just going to give us more data to improve our product. But I would say, yeah, just as a wrap up, maybe look, entering the U.S. market, it's not an experiment for us.
Mhm.
We have a massive investment in our headquarters, a massive investment in manufacturing, massive investment in employees. So I'd say, wrapping up, we're here to stay.
Well, that's wonderful. Mike, thank you so much for sharing wonderful details about your company that should make any EV driver, any EV network excited that you're on our side and that you are a partner with us through this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Landon. Great to spend the morning with you.
Again, thank you so much, Mike, for taking the time to sit down with me out of your busy day and let us know why Alpitronic. No, Walmart EV charging is what I track, but I've used Alpitronics already with Walmart, Mercedes-Benz, Nyana, and there's so many more coming using their HYC 400 and in the future their HYC 1000 units. It's no wonder that Alpitronic is one of the fastest growing EV charging manufacturers in the nation. So I hope that we've answered the question, why Alpitronic? I think the better question is, why not? Thank you for joining me for this special edition of Why, questions you have about Walmart EV charging. Happy trails.